Good morning and welcome to my blog, Wisdom for Today. If you're like me, when you went grocery shopping this week, you picked up a couple bags of candy to give out to the kids. And I know there are some Christians who do not celebrate Halloween. Halloween, what an interesting word. You know, it comes from the word hallowed Eve, Holy Eve, and now it's become Halloween. And how did we take something that was about holiness and turn it into a celebration of the dead or a celebration of ghosts and spirits and things that Christians find offensive? Well, let me give you a little bit of the history. The tradition began in ancient time in Ireland, in the Celtic Islands, and it was called the Festival of Samhain. And in the Festival of Samhain, people would light these big bonfires, and people would dress up like spirits to scare off the ghosts inside the land. Certainly not Christian, certainly very pagan. Around the 8th century, Pope Gregory II, to kind of compete with this celebration, created a celebration that would last from the last day of October to November 1st, and he would call it All Saints' Day. And during this time, you would pray for the individuals who had passed on, who were martyred for their faith, and pray for their family members. Now, by the time the Reformation came along, and the Reformation came along in 1567, Protestants don't believe that you pray for the dead. But they too took this day, the same day, and they, the last Sunday in October, and they made it a day where we contemplate our individual relationship with Jesus Christ and the Reformation. That's a long explanation, but what I want to tell you is the little boys dressed up like a Spider-Man, and the little girls dressed up like Cinderella, I don't think are trying to ward off spirits. And I don't think we have anything to fear from the celebration. In fact, I think we're a better witness if we get out the door and show people that we are here and that we're loving, decent people. That's another incident where we get out of the salt shaker and into the world. But today I want to talk to you because it is close to Reformation Sunday, and it is the last Tuesday of the month, about a historical character who was very important to the Reformation. In fact, he's the father of Presbyterianism. I want to talk to you about John Calvin. Now, last year I talked to you about Martin Luther. And Martin Luther was the monk who was fed up with the corruption of the churches, and he wrote 95 points, 95 theses on his complaints about the church. And to sum them up, basically what he said is that the people themselves are having to go through the church to get to God, as opposed to going directly to God. And they didn't have access to the Word of God. And he decried some of the unbiblical things, such as indulgences and having to confess to a priest, that are inside the Catholic traditions. Now, John Calvin came around about the same time, and he came to faith while reading the book of Psalms. He too was trained as a lawyer, as was Martin Luther, by the way. And when he came to faith, he realized a couple things about the Lord and about Christianity that he didn't think the church had taught him, because he grew up in the Catholic Church too. First of all, he learned how practical our faith was, that it was a way to govern not only the people of God, but to govern all of humanity. He learned that the church should not be elitist. There shouldn't be poor that are treated one way and wealthy that are treated the other. And that the church wasn't a place for young children and women. And he wanted to change all that. He wanted to make it a place of grace. And instead of writing 95 theses and nailing it to a chapel wall, he wrote the Institutes of the Christian Religion. And in that, he emphasizes our personal relationship with God. He emphasizes grace, but also God's sovereignty in our salvation. One of the things that Calvin didn't like that he believed Christians did then, and I think Christians sometimes do now, is they kind of toil hell over people's heads. That if they don't do something right, then God will forget them. If they forget God, God will forget them. Or if they fall into a pit or fall into sin, they may lose their salvation. John Calvin believed you could never lose your salvation. And he makes a very good argument for that in his Institute of Christian Religion. And he set up the form of government that we use in the Presbyterian Church, where it's just not a minister who rules the congregation, but a minister ministers amongst elders. And we preach the Word of God with the help of laity and clergy working together, but with the Word of God being the center of all that we do. When you go out this coming Halloween night, my prayer is that you will be present and not lock your doors and turn off the lights, but instead you'll greet your neighbors and greet young kids. Or if you don't have a Halloween celebration in your neighborhood that you go and you're part of an elementary school, you'll become part of that. The church mustn't retreat from the world. We must be a light amongst the darkness. Even if you believe the celebration has darkness in it, you can be a light there, talking to children and parents and getting to know people. I pray that you have a wonderful fall day and that you enjoy the coming festivities as we look forward to Thanksgiving, and then we look forward to Christmas and Advent. And in all those things, keep Christ the center of your celebration. I pray that you'll come to church on Sunday. God's blessings, and have a good day.